From this point forward, we're going to take charge of the house ourselves. You'll need to look for a new place to live. My brother and his wife, with my mother's backing, are insisting I leave, viewing me as a hindrance. It's bewildering that they overlook the fact I've been footing the bill for our living expenses. Their lack of appreciation and respect astounds me. In response, I've resolved to take matters into my own hands. My name is Helen, and I'm a 35-year-old woman who moved back in with my parents after college. Venturing out into the world proved more challenging than expected. Initially, I looked for jobs while receiving unemployment benefits. Then, I discovered the world of remote work and carved out a niche for myself as a freelance engineer, leveraging my background in science. Starting with smaller tasks, I managed to earn a modest income, but more importantly, I gathered invaluable experience. Working from home not only suited me financially, but also helped me avoid overwhelming social interactions, boosting my self-esteem. Gradually, I took on bigger projects, and my earnings increased to match those of a typical corporate employee. However, my parents, particularly my mother who holds traditional views, struggled to comprehend my unconventional work arrangement. Despite my efforts to explain, my mother remained skeptical, fearing what she couldn't understand. My father seemed to get it, but my mother couldn't shake her concerns, often questioning the sustainability of my job. She couldn't grasp the concept, no matter how much I tried to reassure her of my professional commitment. She would express concerns about me staying home too long, mistaking my career choice for a mere phase or a consequence of mental health issues, despite it having been over 3 years. Her inability to understand extended to questioning the legitimacy of my online work, even suggesting that it might be something illicit or tied to peculiar beliefs. Despite showing her emails from clients and my income statements, she remained unconvinced, failing to recognize the legitimacy and potential of my career path. This misunderstanding and lack of support within my family have led to a pivotal moment where I must assert my independence and navigate my own way forward. I shared with my mom how I receive consistent payments from my job, trying to assure her of its reliability, but she remained unconvinced, plagued by worries that I might be living off unemployment benefits. The thought of moving out on my own had crossed my mind, yet I hadn't managed to save enough money for such a step. Around the same time, my dad's health took a turn for the worse, requiring nursing care after an early retirement that led to a decrease in our family's income. When I voiced my concerns, he comforted me, saying, "Oh, Helen, I have my pension. We'll manage." Given my mother's tendency to overspend, I couldn't help but question, "Are you sure we can make ends meet?" Nonetheless, we had to make do with what we had, our savings. Seeing my dad weary, possibly anxious about what lay ahead, weighed on me. He had always been there for me, supporting me through college and my return home due to mental health challenges. Leaving him in such a situation seemed unthinkable. My mom, too, was taken aback by my dad's sudden health issues. Wanting to give back and support my family, I decided to stay. "Don't worry, Dad. I've got this," I assured him. His surprised response, "Really? But can you really afford to?" pushed me to show him my bank account details, proving my financial stability. "Dad, I didn't realize you were doing so well," he admitted upon seeing my earnings. "Could you help out then?" "Of course," I replied. "You've supported me through so much. It's my turn to support us." This pledge led me to take on the household's financial responsibilities, covering everything from my father's medical expenses to daily living costs. I began transferring a set amount monthly to help with our expenses, and I created a new main credit card for my mom, adding her as an additional user since she previously relied on my dad's card. Both my dad and I tried to save as much as we could, encouraging my mom to do the same. Despite my efforts, my mom remained skeptical of my contribution and even suggested I should move out. My dad, recognizing the significance of my financial support, argued that without me, they'd face even greater difficulties. Reluctantly, my mom agreed to let me stay, while I continued my work and contributed at home, my mom took my help for granted and imposed stricter demands. "Can't you finish your chores faster?" she would ask. "Sorry, it's tough managing work and household tasks," I replied. She often doubted the difficulty of balancing both, leading to a growing strain in our relationship. My dad, however, understood and appreciated my contributions. We managed to maintain this arrangement for a year until, unfortunately, my dad's health declined further, requiring hospitalization. Every day, I made sure to visit my dad in the hospital. "Hey Dad, how are you feeling today?" I'd ask. "Thank you, Helen. I'm not seeing much improvement, but I'm more concerned about how this is affecting you," he'd respond. I reassured him, "Don't worry about me. Looking after you is not a burden, but I've noticed things with Mom have been tense since you've been hospitalized." Living with my mom had become increasingly difficult, almost suffocating, yet my desire to support both of my parents never waned. I fondly remembered the days when she would carefully prepare my lunches and dinners during my school years. However, my feelings began to shift when my brother James and his wife Sarah showed up unannounced one day, apparently invited by my mom without my knowledge. James made it clear, "We're going to be staying here now." I was taken aback and questioned the sudden decision. He explained, "Mom's worried about you managing on your own while Dad's in the hospital." I looked to my mom for answers, but she avoided my gaze. James tried to reassure me, "We're here to support you, Helen." However, Sarah's smirk hinted at an underlying tension. My mom then added, "Thank you both. Helen, you'll need to pull your weight, or living here could become difficult for you." Their sudden presence in our home marked the beginning of a challenging new chapter. Despite my brother's successful career and presumed financial stability, the dynamics at home became strained. My sister-in-law's demands, such as waking me up early to make breakfast, clashed with my work schedule. As someone who thrives in the early hours, these interruptions were particularly frustrating. "I'm already working," I protest, but she insisted. "Then hurry up and get breakfast ready. Must I do everything myself?" Our family mornings used to be laid back, with each of us eating whenever and whatever we preferred. I had assumed that, with my mother and sister-in-law at home, preparing breakfast would naturally fall to them. Yet my sister-in-law believed in shared responsibilities, pushing me to contribute. Reluctantly, I helped with breakfast, but my efforts seemed never to satisfy them. I had prepared a thoughtful meal of soft scrambled eggs, a lettuce salad, buttered toast, and a juicy sausage, a perfectly respectable breakfast, I believed. But their expectations were evidently much higher, adding to the growing tension within our household. Feeling a mix of frustration and disbelief, I responded to their complaints about breakfast. "If you don't like it, you don't have to eat it." They were visibly taken aback by my reaction. "What kind of attitude is that? Who do you think you are? It's not right for you not to help out more around the house," they criticized. "But I also have work," I tried to explain, only to be met with skepticism. "Work? Really? What kind of work do you call that? It sounds ridiculous," my brother and his wife rebuked, their words sharp and dismissive. Influenced by my mother, my brother had always had a tendency to belittle me and my efforts. Despite their attitudes, I knew the value of my work time. Without another word, I gathered my belongings, including my laptop, and left the house, ignoring my brother's calls after me. I headed directly to my dad's hospital room. Upon seeing my rushed entrance, he asked, "Helen, what's wrong? You look upset." After I shared what happened, he was taken aback. I had no idea things had gotten that bad at home. "I'm sorry, Helen. Remember, you can choose your own path in life." Feeling somewhat adrift, I reflected on how my mother seemed to prefer James's presence at home. My dad offered comforting words. "You don't have to stay in a place where you feel unwelcome. I want you to be happy. Live your life the way you see fit." His words bolstered my resolve to find a new living situation. Returning home that evening, I walked into a stern atmosphere. My mother, brother, and sister-in-law awaited with serious expressions. "Where have you been all day?" my brother demanded. I thought you were at work. I took the day off because of you, he claimed, which surprised me. Taking a day off so abruptly seemed quite irresponsible to me. As the confrontation escalated, my brother and his wife made their stance clear. Get out, my brother stated. Why? I asked, confused. From now on, the two of us will live here. If you're not willing to fit in, you should leave. We don't need your help, they insisted, attempting to push me out of my own home. That's enough, Helen. You don't need to be here, especially now that your father isn't at home, my mother added, siding with them. It seemed they all viewed me more as a nuisance than a contributing member of the family. Did my mother not realize the extent of my financial contributions, even as she indulged in her monthly splurges on luxury items? I wondered how she would manage once her allowance from me stopped. Their disregard for my contributions and their decision to oust me from the house made it clear that it was time for me to carve out my own space, away from the familial tension and misunderstandings. My frustration reached its peak. Despite numerous attempts to explain my situation, my mother, brother, and sister-in-law continued to disregard my contributions. Pushed to my limits, I decided it was time for a strategic move, a sort of wake-up call for them. I discreetly transferred the funds from the bank account tied to my mother's credit card into another account under my control, curious to see her reaction when she found her card declined. Likewise, I reallocated some money from my father's account, which had been essential in supporting our household expenses. From then on, only his medical costs would be taken from this particular account, a detail my mother was not aware of. This shift placed a newfound financial pressure on my brother and his wife, challenging them to shoulder the burden I had hellied for so long. After setting my plan into motion, I packed up my life and announced, I'm leaving this place. Their faces registered surprise at my declaration. Despite their continuous negative treatment, they hadn't expected me to actually make such a decisive move. However, their smirks seemed to suggest they found some pleasure in my departure. You're finally leaving. There was never anyone as bothersome as you, they taunted, confident I wouldn't return. Of course, I won't. And don't bother contacting me, I retorted. As I walked away, they were still smiling, but I wondered how long their amusement would last once reality set in. In my new sanctuary, I found peace and the space to fully dedicate myself to my work. Then, unexpectedly, my brother reached out, his voice laced with surprise and a hint of desperation. I thought I made it clear not to contact me. What's the matter? I asked, not hiding my annoyance. Oh, that? Well, we didn't know. Why didn't you tell us? He stumbled over his words. I tried, remember? But my work and contributions were always dismissed, I reminded him. He tried to shift blame. Well, Mom said, and I guess I got confused. That's not really my fault, is it? No, it's not. But now you're experiencing the financial strain. Mom's spending habits, coupled with the unpaid bills, it's all on you now. Managing all that was part of how I supported the household. Now that I'm gone, you'll need to figure it out, I explained calmly. The reality of their new financial responsibilities was a stark wake-up call for my brother. Without me to rely on, they were forced to confront the consequences of their actions and attitudes. This move wasn't about revenge. It was about asserting my worth and the value of my contributions, teaching them a lesson in respect and responsibility as I embarked on a path to personal and professional fulfillment. I was taken aback when my brother reached out for financial help. I need you to transfer some money into my bank account, he pleaded urgently. I couldn't help but express my disbelief. Are you serious? You work for a large company. Shouldn't that be enough? That's when he dropped the bombshell. Actually, I was let go from the job because of a major mistake I made. This revelation left me speechless. It seemed my brother had returned to our parents' home under the assumption that it was financially secure, partly due to my father's retirement pension. I had long wanted to make it clear to him the critical role I played in keeping our family afloat financially. The thought of his surprise upon realizing that it was actually me who had been managing the household's finances, assuming they were stable, was ironically amusing. This surprise would soon extend to his wife and our mother as well. Soon after, my brother's wife joined the plea. "We really need your help. Our savings are running out." My mother chimed in with, "Your father is upset and won't be contributing to the household finances anymore. We're in a bind." But I had reached my limit. "I've supported you all more than enough. You're all capable of working, so it's time to support yourselves. I'll be cheering you on from afar," I responded, a mix of determination and resignation in my voice. A plea for reconsideration came through the phone, but I stood firm, distancing myself from my brother, his wife, and my mother. My father, too, found it difficult to go back to living with my mother, opting instead for legal advice and a new living arrangement. Thankfully, this allowed me to visit him daily, maintaining our bond. A friend filled me in on my family's current situation. My brother had downsized to a modest apartment, adopting a more frugal lifestyle. My mother, traditionally a homemaker, found adjusting to employment challenging, while my brother struggled to accept the perspectives of younger colleagues in his new part-time role, leading to short-lived employment. His wife became the Prisora breadwinner, working tirelessly until the burden became too great, prompting her departure. Now, reports suggest my brother and mother are working hard to make ends meet, though my mother's penchant for overspending continues, leading to accumulating debts. While I worry about their well-being, the distance I've put between us is a reminder of the boundaries I had to set for my own peace of mind and financial security. I've reached a point where providing further financial help isn't possible for me. Right now, I'm dedicating a lot of energy toward creating a comfortable life for myself. My income has been slowly rising, and I'm thinking about exploring new opportunities. One of my biggest goals is to visit my dad every day. I want to